Hey everyone, so glad you're here. Today, we're diving into what I think is one of the most empowering skills a beekeeper can learn, how to raise your very own honeybee queen. Understanding how to create a new matriarch for your hive, it really puts you in the driver's seat of your apiary's health and its success. So let's get right into it.
So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll talk about why this is such a game changer. Then, we'll get into the amazing biology of how a queen is made. We'll learn how to read the natural signs your hive is already giving you, and then walk through the absolute simplest method to get your first queen. We'll even take a quick peek at some advanced stuff before finishing up with how to get your new queen mated and welcomed into her new home. All right, first things first. Why should you, as a hobbyist, even think about raising your own queens? Well, it all boils down to just how important she is to the entire colony. I mean, think about it for a second. What's really at the center of everything happening in your hive? The whole personality of the colony, how much honey they make, even their very survival, it all comes down to one single bee. And that, of course, is the queen.
You've probably heard this before, but it's one of the truest things in beekeeping. When you look at why colonies don't make it, poor queen quality is always right there at the top of the list. A strong queen means a strong hive. A weak queen means a weak hive. It really is that simple.
Okay, and this is where it gets really exciting. Yeah, raising your own is cheaper than buying them, for sure. But the real power here is control. You don't have to worry about the stress of shipping, which means you get healthier queens right from the start. And best of all, you get to play genetic architect for your own bees. You can select for traits like gentleness or bees that are just honey-making machines, all perfectly adapted to your backyard.
Now, you can't just do this whenever you feel like it. Timing is absolutely critical. That sweet spot is going to be late spring and through the summer. Why then? Well, that's when the nectar is flowing like crazy, and most importantly, the air is just full of healthy drones ready and waiting to mate with your new queen.
If you're going to raise a queen, you've got to learn to think like a bee. And that all starts with getting a handle on the basic biology that makes a queen, well, a queen.
Here's the amazing part. Every single female bee in that hive starts out as the exact same kind of fertilized egg. So what's the difference? What makes one a queen? It's all about the diet. It's this one secret ingredient, royal jelly. This super-powered protein-packed food is fed exclusively to a larva, and that's what flips all the genetic switches to turn her into royalty.
And here's why that's so important. A good, healthy queen is an absolute egg-laying machine. Get this. At her peak, she can lay up to 3,000 eggs in a single day. That's actually more than her own body weight. It's just incredible. And that productivity is what powers the whole colony. More bees means a bigger workforce, and that means more honey for you.
Okay, this timeline right here, this is your new best friend. You're going to want to know this by heart. From the moment that egg is laid, it's just 16 days until a new queen pops out. Knowing this schedule is the absolute key to getting the timing right for all your queen rearing activities. So, about a week after she hatches, things get pretty dramatic. The new queen takes off on her one and only mating flight. That's it, just one. She'll mate with maybe a dozen drones, give or take, and she stores all the sperm she'll need for the rest of her life. It's an incredibly high-stakes flight. A long rainy spell can be a total disaster, preventing her from ever getting properly mated. The cool thing is your bees are already total experts at this. The real trick is just learning to read the clues they're giving you. So let's look at the 3 main reasons they'll decide to make a new queen all on their own.
Think of this table as your hive's diagnostic chart. If you open a hive and see a whole bunch of those peanut-shaped queen cells hanging off the bottom of the frames, that's a classic sign they're getting ready to swarm. But what if you only see 1 or 2, maybe on the face of the frame? That's called supersedure. They're probably replacing an old or failing queen. And if you find cells built right out from the middle of where the baby bees are, that is an emergency. That means they've lost their queen suddenly and are scrambling to make a new one.
Okay, so we know what the bees do naturally. How can we use that to our advantage? Well, we can try the easiest, most straightforward method there is for any hobbyist, and that is making a split.
The absolute beauty of what's called a walk-away split is just how simple it is. You're basically creating a controlled emergency. You make a new, smaller colony that has fresh eggs, but no queen. And by doing that, you trigger their natural hardwired instinct to raise a new one from the eggs you gave them.
And here's how you do it, in 6 basic steps. First, get your new hive box all ready. Now here comes the most important part. You have to find your current queen. You got to make sure she stays in the original hive. Then, you'll move a couple of frames over to the new box. You want frames that have eggs and young larvae. That's the raw material they need. You'll also want a frame of honey and pollen, and of course, lots of bees. You move the new hive to a new spot in your yard. That keeps the older bees from just flying back home. Give them a little sugar water to get started, and then you just walk away. Seriously, come back in about 4 weeks, and with a little luck, you should find a beautiful new laying queen.
And this, right here, is the real magic. This is the payoff. By doing this, you are actively creating queens that are perfectly adapted, perfectly acclimatized to your specific little corner of the world. Now, once you've done a few splits and you're feeling confident, you might start to get curious about leveling up your skills. For anyone who wants to raise more than just a few queens, the gold standard technique is something called grafting. With grafting, it all starts with picking your champion. You find your absolute best hive, the one that's the calmest, makes the most honey, is the healthiest, and you designate its queen as your breeder queen. All your new queens are going to come from her fantastic genetics.
Then comes the really delicate part. Grafting is literally the act of using a tiny tool to lift a larva, one that's almost too small to even see, out of its cell and gently placing it into a little plastic or wax queen cup. You need a super steady hand and probably a good pair of reading glasses for this.
Finally, you take all those little cups with their larvae and you give them to a big, booming, powerful colony that you've made queenless. We call this a cell builder. Their one and only job is to just pour royal jelly into those cups and raise your hand-picked larvae into big, beautiful queen cells. Okay, so whether you did a simple split or you tried grafting, you're not done yet. The job isn't finished until that new queen is safely mated and accepted by her colony. So let's cover these last few crucial steps.
All right, you can't just toss a new queen into a hive. You've got to introduce her carefully. The most common and honestly the safest way is the indirect method. You use a little cage with a candy plug. It takes the bees a few days to chew through the candy, and in that time, they get used to her unique scent, her pheromones. The direct method is way faster, but it's riskier. It usually involves spraying everyone with scented syrup to confuse them long enough for her to be accepted.
So there you have it. You've done it. You have guided the creation of a new matriarch, the very heart of your hive. The power is now literally in your hands. Which leaves us with one final thought. Now that you can shape the future of your apiary, what traits are you going to select for next season? More gentleness? Better honey production? Disease resistance? The future of your hive is truly yours to design. Happy beekeeping!